Kitty cat somewhere. Here, kitty cat somewhere. Don't see the kitty cat. Oh well. He's gonna tell us what he needs. When he does. Right. There we go. This is as far as we got last time. Okay. So, 2.2.6 Hollywood. As implied earlier, Hollywood authors often gerne, yeah, often and preferred like to take inspiration from Campbell's works. The famed three-act shape or form, as preached by, wow, it's too early in the morning. Drehbuch. Good grief. God, that's such a simple word. Script, but there's a better word. Drehbuch. Screenplay, there we go. Screenplay theoretics like Sid Field is nothing but a simplified version of the hero's journey from the last chapter. God, that's a long sentence across two pages. Hang on. Kritiker bemängeln, dass die entsprechenden Drehbuchautoren Campbells Bemühungen einer Analyse Schema F. Ah, right. So critics criticize. Wow. That those screenplay authors misinterpret Campbell's efforts as creating a uniform topology for all kinds of narrations as a unified scheme. Funnily enough, he uses the word cast here in a way. I don't know if you can use it like that, but I suppose it comes from the same origin as cast, as in cast iron cast. And Schema F, I don't think has a good translation. Let me just check. Schema F. Ah, cookie cutter approach. Yeah. Yeah. Cookie cutter approach. That makes sense. Right. Sid Fields calls his schema paradigm. It is. Goddammit. Alright, double click. Alright. It is extremely simple and reduced so that it can be quickly summarized. The units of playbook pages can be converted into time units. You calculate that one screenplay page is about 1 minute of movie plot. So, beginning, middle, end, Act 1, 2, 3, setup, exposition, confrontation, resolution, pages 1 to 30, 30 to 90, 90 to 120, and plot point 1, plot point 2, from 25 to 27, and 85 to 90. That is the paradigm. So, a screenplay according to Field, is consisting of 3 acts. The first act takes about 30 minutes. The important roles and places of the plot are presented. And my cat keeps complaining, but I'm not sure what he's complaining about. Yes. You have food and water. Everything else is fine. Come up here, then. Come on, Crow. Apologies. So, the most important roles and places of the plot are presented. At the end of the first act, a deep-cutting event known as the plot point. The main part of the film is the confrontation. It takes about an hour and is completed with another plot point. Finally, in the third act, we reach the resolution. 227, computer games. In computer games, the plot is not as easily depicted. Most computer games are no longer moving in a predetermined velocity from left to right, as it was with Super Mario during the arcade times. There are several different... Oh, hey, Ashness. Papers review, indeed. We started yesterday, we continue today. So there's not going to be much in the context of video games. Well, it is about video games, but there won't be much gameplay today. There are several different game genres. And most of them allow the user, to move in real time in a 3-dimensional world. Yes. As opposed to the limitations dictated by the game of rounds, steps, or any other type of rhythm. The subdivision into narrative and not narrative game genres is taken place in chapter 2.3. Here we also find a detailed description of the 2 most important narrative genres with a descriptive historical with a projection into their historical contexts. Crow, can you move over there, please? Crow. No, move along. No. 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 Enough. Right. Just one thing we'll mention here already. There is a deep debate whether a computer game should have a narrative and whether the existing narrative genres will not be pushed out of the market at some point. 228. Narrativists and ludologists. What is that music? Stupid invaders. Interesting. Alright. Right. The fact that a discussion is fairly serious can be seen by the fact that the different fractions separate them are separated into 2 camps, both with a different kind of scientific name. Ludologists from Ludos the game pertain to the general game as a point of study. In particular, this is the camp of the computer game theorists that are of the opinion that the basis of a game is always the simulation, which contradicts the principles of narration. The spiritual leader of this movement, Epson Arseth, explains this as such. Okay. I I think this is an English quote translated into German, and I'm now going to have to translate it back into English. All right. Simulation is the hermetic opposite of the narration, an alternative mode of discourse, bottom up and emerging. Yeah. While narratives are top down and pre-planned. In simulations, the knowledge and experience are generated through the actions and strategies of the players, as opposed to from the authors or movie makers who recreate them. On the opposite end, we have the narrativists or narratologists, whose Janet Murray is one of their representatives, who explains her point of view in the book Hamlet on the Holodeck. The divisiveness with which both of these camps argue with each other is visible in the following discussion that Janet Murray and Epson Arseth had in a forum in 2004. So, it looks like Murray says, Arseth misinterprets my work, just as Arseth is uncomfortable. Oh, this is English. I don't have to translate that. Is uncomfortable with with what he mistakenly sees as my attempt to assimilate digital gaming experiences into the category of story. I'm uncomfortable with attempts to assimilate all participatory narratives into the category of game. Some digital environments, like the if traditions that Nick Montfort describes, or like online text-based role-playing environments, are only marginally game-like. Without demeaning gaming in any way, I would rather leave the category of participatory artifacts more open. Hence the need for a term like interactor or participant, which Brian Loyal uses, rather than gamer to describe the digital experience. Drama, indeed. And then, games are always stories, Janet Murray claims. If this were really true, perhaps professional baseball and football teams would do well to hire narratologists as coaches. My argument would be then, what is the narrative of Tetris? Okay, 2.3, computer games with and without narration. Oh, plot, not narration. Das groß. I only know that word in one very specific context, and it means 140. And I don't think that's... Oh. 144, sorry. Yes, girl. Major part. Interesting. I've never heard that word in that context. Okay. What, right. So this is the paper from 2006 that Jan Müller-Michaelis published together with the publication of Edna bricht aus. So Edna and Harvey is the breakout. Basically, the video game that started Daedalic Entertainment is based on the paper that the author, that the creator of the game wrote, together with this game, So the paper went together with the game. So the paper was released in 2006, and the game was released in 2008. And since this is one of the 8 levels of inventory management, I thought, hey, I should probably read the paper before I actually start, like, pretending I know stuff about this stuff. Oh, interesting. So it was only cited 3 times according to Google Scholar. So it was it is not easy to find in that sense. It didn't have big impacts, and it was not published anywhere. It's just in the archives of the University of Fachhochschule Hamburg. Okay, so probably just something similar then. Very possible. There was some academic rigor to my gaming degree. Please do contribute if you have anything you'd like to share. Always interested in that. So the main bulk of the current gaming genres treat plot as a necessary evil. Really? Okay. Oh, I see what you're doing. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. Oh. How's the microscope project going? Yeah, if you have anything new for me, let me know and I'll... Right. Right, so the bulk of video game genres treat plot as a necessary evil. First-person shooters such as Doom 97... Oh, nice. Would not work without a surrounding plot. But despite complicated movie sequences and expensive graphic effects, it is content-wise rarely above the level of the Super Mario theme of there is an equivalent of the toad at the end of each level that tells us, "Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle." Oops. Bro, what's up? If you talk about the content of video games, you have to differentiate a lot. The term computer game is so vague and all-encompassing that its evaluation of content is, according to uniform criteria, is impossible. If we were to compare that with other sectors of the entertainment industry, this would be similar to attempt to... Oh, right. To attempt to classify the dramaturgy of all of print media or everything on TV. Yeah, which would mean you would have to... That's a good point. You would have to classify the plot of a movie just as well as the plot of the weather forecast. Alright. Now you use the word genre. That's not helpful. Okay. In order to differentiate between different game principles, the video game journalism uses the term genre. Typical examples for this distinction are first-person shooters, racing games, or role-playing games. The term genre is irreführend. Contradictory? No. What's a better word for irreführend? Misleading, yes. Oh, because it becomes self-contradictory, or becomes because issues arise when genres such as adventure are overloaded with its original definition. An adventure could be of the genre fantasy, King's Quest: Simon the Sorcerer, road movie, Runaway, Full Throttle, and film noir, Discworld Noir. Adventure is the problem. But if a game had as a plot the rising of a Formula One driver in his career as plot, that would still not make it a racing game. Crow, can you please go somewhere else? No. Right. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. In order to avoid misunderstandings, we will be using the term Spielgattung instead of genre. So a game can be of a Spielgattung and of a genre. Right, now I have to find a different word for Gattung. Spielgattung. Type, genre, genus, category, class, sort, mode, art form, generic group, literary form. Right. Okay. Gosh. That's genus. Yeah. All right, let's try genus. That might be helpful. Right. So we differentiate between the genre of a game and the genus of a game. Right. And that has to be consistent throughout the remaining of the thesis. Right. In general, you can determine by the genus of the game whether a game has a narrative or not. Skill-based games such as Tetris work without any kind of narrative aspect. It does not tell the tale of of a skilled box stacker. You wrote something similar once. Nice. The existence of a protagonist is therefore a further criterion to decide whether a game has narrative character or not. The Tetris clone Dr. Mario for the NES attempts, for example, to give a narrative to the herabtrudelnden Blöcke, yeah, to the falling blocks. I'm not gonna translate them. Okay, let's see if there's a good translation for herabtrudeln. No. Pretty sure you probably wouldn't even have trudeln. Trudeln, okay. Trundle, okay. Trundling downwards. The blocks trundling downwards. The player, as Dr. Mario, fights with different colored pills against block-shaped viruses. In a vial, which has enormous, suspicious similarity to the Tetris screen. With that, Dr. Mario has a simple narrative, but it is far in the background. It's a literary masterpiece. It is that far in the background that you cannot say that this video game is using the narrative medium. Other game genuses that do not usually contain dramaturgic elements are sports games, puzzle games, board game adaptations, and edutainment. Edutainment can have narrative. Carmen Sandiego has narrative. He said, never having played a single Carmen Sandiego game. games geniuses that only have a limited plot and very, very much in their presentation are strategy games and simulations. Games with narrative, character is the wrong word here. Games with a narrative element are action games such as first-person shooters, jump and run, action adventures, the RPG, and the adventure. As mentioned earlier, action games are in their complexity of the dramaturgy fairly simple. The plot points in the plot and personal conflicts of the protagonists are usually completely avoided. For that reason, this game genius is not further inspected in this thesis. The other two game types, however, RPG and adventure, will be more more thoroughly introspected. Okay, we've got an entire chapter just for you, Ashnas. The RPG. The history of the RPG. In the late 60s, American universities harnessed a subculture of the of Jesus Christ, of board games, the role-playing game. Oh God, students associations that would originally simulate military battles according to strict rules with miniatures on tabletops, continued developing those to fight battles on hexagonal playing fields, even in fictitious scenarios. When in 1965 Tolkien published The Lord of the Rings and created a fantasy avalanche in the USA, it was Gary Gygax, which has the best name in the universe, who had the idea to... Sorry, the thing about the name is something I said, that's not in the thesis. Who had the idea to reinvent tabletops for military fantasy battles into a board game. Gygax founded in the same year with his friends the company Tactical Studio Rules, TSR, in which he published in 1973 with Dungeons and Dragons the very first pen and paper role-playing game ever. It's all Tolkien's fault, exactly. 242, the pen and paper principle. Pen and paper role-playing games such as Dungeons and Dragons work on the basis that a game master takes the moderation of a game while the other players have a playing character. Those playing characters are different as in board games such as Ludo or Don't Angry. Living individual characters with each with a complex... Sometimes even the DM knows what's going on. Each with a complex arsenal of attributes, capabilities, and character properties, which are fixed to a sheet of paper, the character sheet. Since during the game the values and properties of the player can change, you additionally need a pen. The group together enters an imaginary game world in Dungeons and Dragons. It used to be a pen and paper. Yeah, exactly. If you think about it. Right. Hang on. Okay, so the group enters the imaginary game world together. And in Dungeons and Dragons, this was even represented through a variable optically represented through a variable uh, yeah, game area on the table. The largest part, though, was took place in the players' heads. Yes, Gro. Do I have a treat? I do not. Oh, I do. Give me a minute. Okay. Obstacles are surpassed through dice rolls, which are calculated against the individual player's attributes. In the computer RPG, the PC takes the role of the game master. Oops. Oh, that's it. Oops. Come on. God, this is such a bad HUD. Alright. Agree. Right. Crow, where are we going? Aktuelle Strömungen. Right. So current developments, I guess? Alright. During its development, the martial parts of the role-playing game are pushed further and further into the background. The pen and paper role-playing game developed storytelling in which the players in which the players solve the conflicts of their imaginary characters under moderation of the game master in adventure settings, and only rarely actually rely on dice rolls for resolution. An extreme form takes place under the blue sky. Role players meet in so-called LARPs to live-action role-playing, where they personally become the actors of their heroes. The tactical aspects that role-playing games were originally created with are now majorly present in computer adaptations. 244, the history of the CRPG. Since the users of the members of the 60s and 70s fantasy wave very much were congruent with the users and developers of the first computer games, the very first computer role-playing game was very quick to be brought to market. Dungeon was very much influenced by Dungeons & Dragons. It was written in 1975 by Don Daglow, by a student of Claremont Graduate University, and was running on a PDP-10 machine, which was the computer at the university. Even if the graphics was more primitive and all inputs were in text form, it was the very first game of a first person that implemented a first person perspective. Really? Okay. As is currently standard in first person shooters. Singular white vector graphics on black background. Oh, right. Oh, okay. So that is what he meant. Indicated the perspective in a hallway. Almost at the same time, Rusty Rutherford developed a similar game called Pedit 5 for the Plato system, programmed logic for automatic teaching operations at the University of Illinois. Thanks to the centralized computer structure, because of the, okay, yeah, dunk has two meanings. Due to the centralized computer structure, students could only connect through remote terminals to the game. The strange name originated from the fact that it was prohibited to use the memory of the central computer for computer games. Despite its popularity, or probably because of its popularity is what I would argue, it was deleted after a very short time. A second version of the same game called Orthanc, named after one of the towers in The Lord of the Rings, was also deleted. You know that scene in the Knights of the Coconut, or Quest for the Holy Grail, or whatever it's called, where the guy builds his castle in the swamp and it sinks into the swamp, and then he builds another castle and it also sinks into the swamp. That's what this reminds me of. Right. Between those two events, the University of Illinois produced games such as M199H and D&D, short for Dungeons & Dragons, by Gary Weisenhunt and Ray Wood. The first game, I'm guessing this is... Oh, no, this is... a game that was publicly available was called Akalabeth and ran on an Apple II and was developed in 1980 by the 18-year-old Richard Garriott, who, at the age of 15, developed his first dungeon games. Fernschreiber, Jesus Christ. Oh, teletype, right. On the teletype writer of his school, the Creek High School in Houston. And here's a picture of Akalabeth. Richard Garriott. Oh, Richard Garriott was later acclaimed fame as under the pseudonym Lord British for his Ultima series, which accompanied video games from the 80s up into the age of the MMORPGs. Ultima Underworld was the first CRPG that replaced the stepwise movement of the adventure group, which was a relict from the Dungeons & Dragons system, with free movement, that's a typo, in a 3D environment, which was already custom in first-person shooters. Oh, damn. Is that from that? Or is that just because it's Apple II? Ultima Online was one of the first... No, but it's the lineage, right. One of the first MMORPGs. Right. From the MUD to the MMORPG. MUD is the abbreviation for multiple user dungeon. And that's a BBS thing, isn't it? And describes a text-based online environment in which multiple players can log in at the same time. The first MUD was developed in 1979 by Roy Trupshaw at the University of Essex on a Deck 10 and contained 20 rooms and 10 commandos. Through a simple chat system, the users were connected to each other. After Tropshaw left the university, Richard Bartle carried on in his footsteps and redeveloped the game environment from the ground up. The gaming aspects were greatly redeveloped. There were new interaction possibilities, a point system, quests for the player, and a total of 400 rooms. 1980, Essex was connected to the ARPANET. The demand from overseas exploded the bandwidth. The university was forced to limit the maximal to add a rate limiter. That's the easiest way of saying that, and probably the best translation. MUD is meanwhile on CompuServe under license, still available on the internet. The German MUD list has 50 German-speaking entries. It would take over 10 years until the next logical step was taken. Damn it, SX ruining it for all of us. 1991, we Neverwinter Nights was created by SSI and AOL. It played in the Dungeons & Dragons world Forgotten Realms and was a graphic implementation CRPG in which first only up to 50, then 300, and later 500 players were able to play online at the same time. Neverwinter Nights was taken off the net in 1998 despite, and I would again say not despite but because of unbroken usage, so constant usage. Ever since, the MMORPG gained more and more importance through titles like Kingdom of the Winds, Ultima Online, or EverQuest on the computer industry market, or video game market. In 2005, with World of Warcraft, therefore up until that point, most successful game entered the shops. Over 6.5 million players worldwide are registered. So this is 2006. I wonder how many registered players worldwide. 163 million. Jesus Christ. Well, still popular as ever. The dramaturgics of the CRPG. Content-wise, the CRPG, similar to its pen and paper predecessor, has the classic narrative around the character development. The story is told of one or more heroes that develop from the harmless ne'er-do-wells to, well, ne'er-do-wells is skillless people, to the rescuers and saviors of the gaming world, or rather of the game's world. The protagonist is equipped with skills and armor and weapons throughout the game in order to defeat the elementary boss. No, sorry, the elementary evil in the game. Apologies. There we go. This battle finally discharges in a final epic confrontation against a superhuman who is threatening. Oh, is it Heroes of Might and Magic 2? Who is threatening the game world. Indeed, indeed it is. And we have somehow, by accident, landed in a CRPG playlist. Welcome in, Mike. Therefore, the RPG runs congruent to the monomyth created by Joseph Campbell, which is a good callback. The story of the CRPG almost never deviates from this schema. 247 Custom Hero. A further property that separates the CRPG from other computer games is the fact that the engine usually offers the player to generate their own custom hero with a self-chosen name, user-defined skills, and a unique visual. This is nothing but a consequent implementation of a concept from the pen and paper, which is the character sheet. In MMORPGs, one second. Through that, in MMORPGs, the last differences between the hero and the player vanish as the player enters the online world with his own custom avatar. Get some more coffee. Here, the player presents his own avatar against thousands of other players. Yeah. Oh, through that, the hero loses his morphology. No. God. Transferability. Yeah. He becomes a symbol of exactly that one human in the real world that controls him. Not necessarily, but usually, I guess. This maximal congruence of a player and the protagonist therefore moves away from the traditional narrative of the question of the plot of an MMORPG such as World of Warcraft can therefore no longer be easily or uniquely determined. The question, sorry, not quest. There is a surrounding storyline, but it is up to the player themselves whether they want to participate in that or rather do something completely different. For example, go fishing. You just read that, sorry. Through this liberty, the player character is relegated into the background. There is no incentive to bring the game to an end. It is not even possible. Therefore, the narrative is devoid of its resolution, and an overarching story is non-existent. Finally, we get to the adventure. We're on page 31 and we finally talk about adventure game. The adventure game or adventure is a computer game which has a narrative character without physical attributes such as God, can't you use simple words? Jesus Christ. Dexterity and coordination, and therefore can only bring the game to an end through a solution of riddles and puzzles. Okay. A adventure game should have a rounded storyline and a protagonist. The first examples of this, okay, he's using Gattung again, so it's game genus, were based on text in and output. They're therefore called text adventures. Later, this purely textual interface was replaced with a graphical. Therefore, we differentiate text adventures from graphic adventures. From the middle of the 90s, it was possible to use vector-based 3D graphics instead of pixel graphics. Therefore, there is a second differentiation in graphic adventures between 2D graphics adventures and 3D graphic adventures. The term point-and-click adventure is defined for a specific user interface in which the text parser was replaced. Nope. Yeah. The story of the adventure starts in 1972. Yes? Hello. As the story of interactive fiction in a cave, Colossal Cave. I have not played Colossal Cave. Yes, Crow. Long before the CRPG, the informatician and cave explorer William Crowther developed an interactive text-based program for the yes, Crow, come here. For the exploration of the real life stalagmite cave, Mammoth or Flint Ridge, known as Mammoth or Flint Ridge. Through inputs of cardinal directions, one was able to move from room to room and got a description of the corresponding areas of the cave. In 1975, the game fell into the hands of Don Woods. He extended the source code with a pirate and a dwarf, different treasure chests, and a point system, and distributed it under the name Adventure or Advent, because file names back then were only allowed 6 characters. That's crazy. And distributed it via the ARPANET, or ARPANET, which was a predecessor of the internet that connected university PCs or other computers. It wouldn't be personal computers. The game got very popular in computer center workers of those universities. And even Woods used, as if it was a requirement whenever a new game genus was created, was inspired by the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And through that, intentional or not, he himself wrote history, adventure. Oh, because that's where the word adventure actually originates from. Okay. Adventure was the first commercial text adventure. No, was the inspiration for the first commercial text adventure, but also of the mud. And Crowther was took part in its development and the entire IF community. IF as an interactive fiction. Adventure, in the end, became the prototype for a huge number of highly decorated video games. Today is the game also known as the under the name Colossal Cave. Infocom, Zork, come on. 252 Infocom. The first others who were inspired by Wood's cave divings were Mark Blank, Bruce K. Daniels, Tim Anderson, and Dave Lebling from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, short MIT. Even during their studies, they wrote Zork, which originally had the name Dungeon, because they didn't want to risk copyright infringement. Zork's first version was also a hit on, or very popular on the ARPANET. After leaving MIT, they founded Infocom, and in 1979 finalized the game in its final form. The only thing missing was a possibility to make the game available to the public, because it was only running on mainframe computers. The Z Machine was born, an emulator that could run on all home computers and could run the source code of Zork. In Personal Software Inc. Right. They found their first distributor in Personal Software Inc., which was later renamed to VisiCore, and distributed Zork in 1979 for the TRS-80 and in 1980 for the Apple II. Such began the success story of Infocom. Zork would have 4 sequels, and goodbye, Crow, and was sold over 1 million times before Infocom was bought by Activision in 1986. God damn it, it's always Activision. (253) Text Adventure Semantics. Text adventures such as by Infocom were were high in demand despite their gaming simplicity over a long period of time. The way it worked was more or less never changed. The game's plot was split into text fragments which were triggered by player commands. The commands entered via keyboard were interpreted by the so-called by a sub-program called the parser. Even only the number of the possible commands and their complexity were extended over time. PC crashed? Oh no! While training? The game's style had a huge... Jesus Christ. Recollection factor? No, what's it called? Recollection... Memorability, recall value, recognition value. Oh, I thought there would be a better term for that. Breadth first search for microscope. got too broad. Commands of the form open window or go east, or had to be of the shape open window or go east. The reactions were short and pragmatic, hey Laura. But were always intended to, but always tried to keep in short words. Hasn't I hadn't even seen that. For example, here we are presenting the game start of Zork as I have played it for the first time. The angled brackets mark the lines where I entered words myself. I'm very tempted to just fire up the TTS and have TTS read it instead. Mailbox hype indeed. I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you? How are Bailey and Will? How are the kittens? West of house. You're standing in an open field west of a boarded house with a boarded front door. I have no idea how many times I heard that during that one session. There is a small mailbox here. Look at mailbox. The small mailbox is closed. Open mailbox. Opening the small mailbox reveals a leaflet. Eat leaflet. I don't think the leaflet would agree with you. Read leaflet. Taken. Welcome to Zork. Zork is a game of adventure, danger, and low cunning. In it you will explore some of the most amazing territory ever seen by mortals. No computer should be without one. Can you change the TTS voice to be the Rye guy? Okay, so I would have to take the very, very few audio samples I have of the Rye guy and then train a neural network based on that to get an actual TTS voice. I am pretty sure that that would violate the personal copyright of the actor who originally recorded Boo's voice line. Because I would be imitating their voice line without their permission. I think that's how that works, but I'm not entirely sure. And Zork, is this true? How's Asnerspot, by the way? Jesse Zuko are good. I think they're playing. Bailey's still waking up. But well, Will is getting ready to referee rugby. Oh, damn. Here, relax after we personal family and recharging the social battery. As it turns out, Mark Blank and others have anticipated my stupidity. It was very obvious what I was supposed to do with the leaflet that I found in the mailbox. I was online. Okay, more recharging the mode. Of course, as a curious player, I was interested to find what was written on the note. Maybe it is a hint for solving the game. Nevertheless, the story would be very little little interactivity if I was unable to make a different decision, such as attempting to eat the leaflet. Indeed, I obtain a fitting reaction. The fact that I was even allowed to attempt it, gosh, is good enough to ignore the rather rude response. I knew from the get-go that it was not a good idea. Stupid laws and copyright agrees with laws and copyright. And see, I had a similar idea for Stauf's voice. Because we had the idea of rewriting some of the cryptic clues to be a little less obtuse. But that would also violate Robert Hirschbeck's copyright. I mean, we could ask him. He's still alive. He's on Facebook. Generic voice that's closer. That's an option, but I would probably have to pay for those, and I don't want to. And there was a video by Corridor Crew where they also faced the same dilemma. GDTTS voices are great, indeed. Right. This subtle handshake, or eye winking, I don't know, with which the parser reacts to the very absurd but possible commands of the players, is a style medium that is... Oh, I see where we're going. Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, you smart boy. Okay, right. We're actually taking very small steps towards the main unique selling point of Have and Etna. Right. Let me try to translate the entire section and then explain what I'm talking about. Right. So, this secret handshake, or winking of the eye, with which the parser responds to the absurd but possible commands of the player, are a style medium that can be found throughout all of the game genus. As a player, you are disappointed if you only ever get the reaction of a typical "that doesn't work." You feel left alone and lose the desire to try unconventional ideas. But if a game was only able to be solved through conventional commands, it would be a pretty boring game. In the best case, specifically those actions... What? Zählen gerade die Aktionen, die nicht zur Lösung führen. Oh, specifically those actions that do not contribute to the solution of the story can still contribute to the narrative. How that can be done is something I show in Chapter 3 as an example of Etna, of Have and Etna. Not sure I agree with that. Yeah, that was a little... That statement is a little overbold to say that it's exactly those that aren't part of the solution that tell the story. But, meh. It's alright. It's his opinion. I'm pretty sure if he thought about it, it probably wouldn't even be his opinion. I think he just phrased it poorly here. Right. As mentioned multiple times, Edna and Have's The Breakout has as a unique selling point the fact that every interaction yields a unique voice line and an attempt at a joke. .5.4 Interactive Fiction. We unleash the world's most powerful graphics technology. You'll never see Infocom's graphics on any computer screen. We draw graphics from the limitless imagery of your imagination. A technology so powerful, it makes any picture that's ever come out of a screen look like graffiti by comparison. An attempt... Oh no. Yeah, I mean, not all of the jokes land, right? You can't have 9 hours of banger after banger after banger by combining a fork and a bucket of paint, right? That's... I've seen some good graffiti. That's a fair point. But you can. It's called Viagra. Combining a fork and a bucket of paint. Oh, 9 hours of bangers. Tom Scott, is there anything you'd like to say?
Kilogram.
Kilogram. Very good. Thank you, Tom Scott.
I'm on my way back from the Arctic.
Old Kilo. Oh, interesting. Okay, so Infogame saw itself and its product as a crass alternative to what they would call a demented action game. They coined the term interactive fiction as the new supergenre of the game genus. Gosh. A process which has been criticized by by game theoretics such as Espen Arseth as an act of narcissism without any relevance, and which was not accepted by either the market or the journalists. The game theoretician Jesper Juhl phrased this on his website as follows. The term is basically used to claim I don't have to translate that. To claim literary qualities of a game. Interactive fiction has from the very beginning defined in opposition been defined in opposition to other types of computer games, but later on many games have been promoted as more true interactive fictions than other games with the same label. In actuality, the products labeled interactive fiction have not developed much on a structural level. They haven't become more complex or dynamic. The primary development has rather been a move from text-based games to games based on graphics. Interactive fiction is then two things: a utopian idea and a genre continually claiming to have created this utopia. I know, right? Pilgrim is on its way back from the Arctic. Where is the airspeed? What is the airspeed velocity? Is it carried by an unladen swallow? Despite Infocom's to translate the quote that it clearly been. Yeah. There was a quote that was clearly already translated from English to German, which we had to translate back. It was very funny. Yeah, that's true. Despite Infocom's escapades, purely text-based adventures, in their glamour and success in the computer games industry, lost all of their relevance with the introduction of graphics in the game genus. The game principle and Infocom's philosophy, however, remained alive through an active community which kept organizing themselves under Infocom's term interactive fiction in Usenet groups. Exchange about interactive novels with literary value and in a non-commercial way. When I picture games like Zorg, it's same, me too. Probably because of the parsers, right? Maybe? I don't know. Okay. Black, white, and red all over. That sounds like the punchline of a different joke. Like a zebra in a blender or something. All text. Anyway, rec.arts.intfiction and rec.games.intfiction are still active. Let's see if they still are in 2000. I'm going to take a don't worry. Yeah, same. Okay, so rec.arts.inffiction. Okay, it looks like they moved on to a Google group. These are all spam. Or are they? I can't tell. But here it says interactive fiction as literature. I'm not going to click that. Oh, good, Laura. Don't worry. Okay. Every year since 1995, the interactive fiction competition takes place. As the name implies, this is a competition for IF authors. Later competitions such as Spring Thing and XYZZY Awards entered that. Spam ruined 90% of forums. Oh, interesting. Maybe it is due to the nice sound of interactive fiction that we still have uncertainty on what is and isn't interactive fiction. In the gaming literature, this usually means any medium through which interactivity through the recipient, a story is told. Jesus. In the more narrow sense, this means narrative computer games. In an even more narrow sense, it is a synonym for the adventure game. Is differentiated from its classical word origin as a pure text adventure as the only pure form from different products, and finally is representative for the products of the non-commercial IF community that happened after the dissolution of Infocom. Hey, we've got the Williams mentioned. Making my Mr. play the Wii Shop music in the menus is my greatest achievement. Please elaborate that. Unrelated to anything. The first time graphic adventures in the 1980s. Right, in 1980, in 1980 was the first time graphic elements entered the adventure sphere. The married couple Ken and Roberta Williams, oh yeah, Mystery House, we've seen Mystery House, wrote Mystery House, a successful game for the Apple II about an adventurer's house visitation in the style of an Agatha Christie novel. The parcel of Mystery House was inferior to the one of Zork, and the graphics was similar to the first RPGs, simply few vector lines. Nevertheless, Mystery House dethroned Infocom and from the adventure throne. The Williamses founded the company Online Systems, which was later renamed to Sierra Online. and would greatly influence the direction of video games, of that particular genus of games. A further representative of the graphic adventure was 1982's The Hobbit by Beam Software Melbourne House, based on the Lord of the Rings trilogy prequel by J.R.R. Tolkien. Other than graphics, the game had a rude number of further innovations, especially related to the number of ways the player could... The Herr der Ringe flows so nicely. Why? What's wrong with that? The number of interactions the player had. So in Germany, the Herr der Ringe sound... Oh, you were being genuine, right? I wouldn't know. Like, to me, everything German sounds normal, right? So... Regarding interactivity, The Hobbit nowadays is still far above the standard of a classic adventure game. You could nest items within each other to any degree. That's strange. The non-playable characters were controlled through the computer based on their different capabilities. So a virtual Gandalf crossed through the entire game world completely independently, picked up items and put them down somewhere else, and could even be captured without the player noticing. The parser was able to interpret nested, complicated sentences with punctuation, prepositions, adjectives, and adverbs. Finally, characters and items even could comprised a primitive physics, such as Flugeigenschaften, flight properties, when hurled against the enemy. Right. Gonna take a quick break. I'll be right back. 256, Sierra Online. In 1983, IBM asked Sierra Online to construct a game, to design a game to demonstrate the new graphic capabilities of the new home computer PCJR. As such, King's Quest was created as the first adventure game in which the player character as a figure was visually represented through the interface, and was controlled through the interface, through their scene. King's Quest became a grand success and was transferred through many home computer systems. There were 7 sequels. That's correct. The later games from Sierra were not only contributed to their graphical development, even the main characters were gained more and more depth. So interessant. Such was created the prototype of the adventure game hero Linkish. Oh, as a incompetent but lovable sociophobe, almost making fun of the target audience. Well, that's a weird word. Okay. The author duo of Sierra, known as Scott Murphy and Mark Crow, also known as the two guys from Andromeda, gave birth to the first episode of their 6-part Space Quest series in 1986, with their protagonist Roger Wilco, another typo, a tollpatschig, derpy space janitor. Another example is the skillless wannabe Casanova Space Larry Laffer by L. Lowe's almost 7-part Leisure Suite Larry series. Part 4 is skipped. In part 5, a hungover Larry desperately tries to remember what happened in part 4. As such, Sierra offers in its adventure games a huge variety of genres. Right? So remember that this author distinguishes between genus and genre. The genus is adventure, the genre would be things like science fiction, Space Quest, fantasy and King's Quest or Quest for Glory, crime as in Police Quest, Manhunter, and even Western, Freddy Farker, Frontier Pharmacist, were part of the repertoire of the software blacksmiths, for lack of a better word. Further important parts are the 2-part Laura Bow series, in which Sierra Online returned to its roots of Agatha Christie-like crime scenes, the 3-part Gabriel Knight series, by the American mystery author Jane Jensen, and the funny Goblins games, which happen completely without dialogue and are mainly focused on mechanical puzzles that follow the story of gnome-like gnomes through a happy fantasy world. Dwarf-like gnomes. Yeah, Gartenzwergartig. That doesn't really help. Alright. Garden gnome-like gnomes. It's great. Garden gnome-like dwarves. There we go. Other than adventure games, Sierra Online also participated in other. To be fair, gnomes are pretty gnome-like, right? Other game. What was the word we were using? Genuses. For example, they were the ones who helped Richard Garriott to start his Ultima series. Oh, and took him under contract. Oh, didn't know that. The success story of Sierra stopped. Really? Did it stop though? Okay. When Lucasfilm Games in 1987 brought Maniac Mansion as the first point-and-click adventure to market. Up until then, adventure... Oh, I see. Adventures were still controlled through the keyboard. Sierra tried to follow up with their own point-and-click interface, but the damage was already done. A new generation of players took to the market. Yeah, but they were still successful. Well, whatever. In the meantime, Sierra Online became Sierra Entertainment. Adventure games are only rarely produced. 257, Lucasfilm Games. Even in 1982, George Lucas, the mental father of the Krieg der Sterne film, yeah, of the Star Wars movies. Wow. It took me that long to translate Star Wars. Because... See, here's the thing, right? The very first Star Wars movie in Germany was called Krieg der Sterne. And then everything else was called Star Wars. No one calls it Krieg der Sterne. The entire series is not called the Krieg der Sterne in Germany. It's called Star Wars. Right. So, in 1982, George Lucas, mental father of the Star Wars movies, asked a small group of programmers to develop to begin development as part of the computer game industry. In their business briefs, Lucasfilms Limited phrased this contract as follows: the immediate goal is to find the best way to bring the Lucasfilms touch to video games and help advance the state of the video game art. An office was rented in a highly creative neighborhood. On the one side, Lucasfilms Games was neighbored by Lucasfilms studio-owned film effect division, Industrial Light and Magic, which is responsible for the bigger Hollywood blockbusters effects. On the other side, a small group of computer specialists worked under was later known as under the name Pixar, wrote theater history with their 3D animation movies such as Toy Story and Monsters Inc. Other than their programming innovations in video games such as interactive music, for example, 1984's Ball Blazer, the music reacts depending on the game situation, and in 1991 that was presented under the title iMuse. Perspective scaling of non-playing characters in a pre-3D environment, as in the Eidolon, or the first real-time strategy game Strike Fleet in 1987. Lucas Games was mainly still known for its humoristic adventure games. The first Lucasfilm adventure hit the market in 1986. Labyrinth was oriented only very, very thinly was only thinly based on the movie by George Lucas. I did not know that Labyrinth was by Lucasfilms. Despite its revolutionary controls, the game did not achieve infamy. The text parser that was known up until this point was replaced with an interface that was controlled through the mouse, where a command was to be chosen from a vertical list. A lot more impact had the game from 1987 with the publication of Maniac Mansion. The Labyrinth interface was developed into the Scum story system. Scum as script creation utility for Maniac Mansion. Now the player was able to control the player character through 15 permanently visible commands on the screen. Further, the game had the option to choose from 3 out of 6 protagonists. Based on who you chose, the solution was differed. Had influence on the solution. The biggest ace up their sleeve was, however, their their absurdist humor with which the story was told. In order to win the game, you had to make radioactive plants burp and help a jumping tentacle monster to defeat the evil Dr. Fred Edison. Right. That's a long sentence. Eine Spitze muss radioaktiv verseuchten Pflanzen zum Rübsen bringen und ein hüpfende Tentakelmonster right. Right, okay. So in order to win the game, you had to make the radioactive plants burp and help the evil Dr. Fred Edison's tentacle monster to a singing career. Tension was maintained as on every step there was a chance to get captured by the owners of the house. Dr. Fred every now and again paraded through the house and did not hesitate to throw the character into the jail. A further novelty was that important new events were portrayed in cutscenes. Jesus Christ! This stylish, this medium of style is still a important elementary dramaturgical tool for today's computer game plots in all genres and geniuses. Oh, this is... Yeah, of course it's a screenshot from the German version. Jesus Christ. In Maniac Mansion, 1987, 1/3 of the screen was reserved for the Scum VM for the Scum interface, not the Scum VM interface. That's something completely different. Maniac Mansion was later... What? Oh, no, I've heard of that. It was bad, wasn't it? Was later a inspiration for the TV series of the same name, which had 3 series, 66 episodes. Ooh. Oh, no. 66 episodes and was marketed in Germany under the name Das Tollhaus on the channel Tele 5. Gosh, Tele 5 hasn't existed since... I want to say 2003? I think they were renamed to something, but I don't remember to what. Let me check. Since they had aired that show. Okay, let's see. Tele 5. Come on. Oh no, Telefilm still exists. They just became that obscure that no one in their right mind still has them as a selectable channel on their TV. That's crazy. Oh! There we go. In 1993, it was renamed into DSF, which was the main sports TV channel back then, other than Eurosport. Yeah. I do remember Ruckzuck, which was a great game show. And then it was refounded in 2002 as Tele5 again. Okay, weird. I guess I never that channel for me that disappeared together with DSF, and therefore was never considered as anything again. Right. Oh wait, did we? Yeah. Okay. The following games of the studio around Ron Gilbert, Eric Wilmunder, David Grossman, and later Tim Schafer, almost each and every one became a huge success and gathered allocates in video game journals. Every game succeeded the previous in humor and originality. Ooh. Due to reasons that are still to be presented, the content quality and charm, charisma, the charm of those games began to decline in the middle of the 90s. The interest of the computer game players was lost. Other geniuses took over the leading positions on the gaming market. We can therefore say that the title of the point-and-click era marked the apex of this game's genus. Yes. Music. Sounds amazing. Dungeon Master Chaos Strikes Back. Right. This was one of the many reasons why I personally took a lot of inspiration from adventure games of that period while creating Edna Bricht aus. Some products that specifically influenced me were The Secret of Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion 2 Day of the Tentacle, Sam & Max Hit the Road, and Grim Fandango. The first two used like Maniac mentioned, the SCUM interface. So there were no gaming innovations in that phase. Only the audio-visual possibilities for the display of the games was continually improved. Until finally games such as Full Throttle or Monkey Island 3 were visually indistinguishable from a cartoon movie. The soundtracks were played by a professional band. And the meanwhile industry normal voice acting was performed by prominent actors and actresses. The German voice actors of Full Throttle definitely were not prominent. Check that. Oh. Okay. Thilo Schmitz. Wait, Ben's last name is Throttle? I did not know that. Rainer Barken. Thomas Balu-Martin. Ulrike Möckel. Okay, I've never heard any of these names. Regina Albrecht. Nope. But they all have Wikipedia articles, so... Okay, one one of them begins with that, so... Okay, so these are not prominent actors in German, but they are prominent voice actors, I'm guessing. You can usually tell whether or not they are pictured with a picture. But in the English version, you have Mark Hamill at least. So that would be quite something. Don't know any of the others. Okay. Voice actors. Okay, Futurama. Sure. Right. So, no. I would agree. Okay. And with Grim Fandango in 1998, the company that has in the meantime rebranded into LucasArts dared their first steps into the 3D environment. The pre-rendered oh, fuck it, I didn't shut. We play the polygon character Manny Calavera in 3D rendered environments, not with command or mouse click, but directly through the keyboard. The arrow keys could rotate the character and make him walk forwards and backwards. Further keys were interactable for the inventory and standard commands such as pick up and use. Many fans were disappointed by or enraged by the very difficult control schema of Grim Fandango. Oh, really? Was it a commercial flop? I did not know that. Grim Fandango was, despite its poetry in narration around the Mexican Grim Reaper, became a flop. Full Throttle is the odd one out. Monkey 3 and Soundmax have very recognizable voice actors in general. Interesting. But as in voice actors who voiced who are voice actors or actual actors who are well known? Because I don't know any voice actors. Oh. Voice actors, got it. In the year 2000s, the era of the adventure games found its sad and disappointing end with Monkey Island 4 Escape from Monkey Island. See, I was only playing those games. I didn't notice anything was happening. Oh, damn. Technically brilliant, and in its content and length very similar to the old Monkey Island games. The story itself was arbitrary, and it was a loveless construct of previous parts of its predecessors. That's harsh. Is that true? Furthermore, Guybrush Threepwood oh, did not. All right, the 3D look did not fit him very much. The characters seemed lifeless, talked past each other, and placed themselves in unfavorable camera positions on the screen. Tell us what you really think. I don't know. My main quarrel is the same with all of the Monkey Island games, but it's not any of the things that are written here. So, I wouldn't necessarily say that. One of the reasons for that would be that Tim Schafer, after Ron Gilbert, Eric Wilmulder, and David Grossman, was the last developer from the old point-and-click days. Was the last developer from the point-and-click games who quit LucasArts because of their terrible company policies. George Lucas personally asked to shift the focus away from the adventure into action and Star Wars merchandise games. 2 already announced titles such as Full Throttle 2 and Sam & Max 2 were never finished despite advanced programming. Well, that makes me sad. Tim Schafer now works for the company. Oh, that's very loud. Or is it? Oh, it's just on my end, I think. Should be fine. Tim Schafer nowadays works for the company Two Fines Production. With Psychonauts, his funny debut in 2005, outside of LucasArts, hit the markets a colorful mixture of adventure, action, and jump and run. David Grossman founded, together with a series of further ex-LucasArts workers, the company Telltale Games, which, as the name implies, had the aim of putting the narrative character into the foreground. With the license of Jeff Smith's comic book series Bone, Telltale Games got a basis for an innovative concept known as the episodic adventure. Short plot lines and faster development cycles and cheaper prices were meant to represent what, in their mind, kurze Anstrengungen und damit schnellere Herstellzeiten und günstigere Preise sollten das widerspiegeln, was ihrer Meinung nach schon immer redundant im Adventure vorhanden war. Eine Tendenz hin zum Comic, mehr denn zur Literatur, mehr zur Cartoonserie denn zum Film. What a weird sentence. Okay. So, shorter plot lines, quicker development cycles, and more affordable prices were meant to mirror what was, by their opinion, always redundant in the adventure game. A tendency towards the comic rather than the literature, and towards the cartoon rather than to the movie. There we go. Since 2005, already 2 Bone episodes were created. In the meantime, by bone, do they mean The Walking Dead, or is that something else? They're not RPGs, you're right. Hang on. Telltale Games, Bone. Bone, out from Bone, though. Never mind, okay. Sounds like a porn game. Oh, Phony Bone and Smiley Bone, that's fun. Okay. Didn't really... Huh. Alright. Well, let's move on. Right. In the meantime, Telltale managed to get the Salmon Max license. The first episode will be published in autumn. And will probably, just like Bone, only be available online. Ron Gilbert left LucasArts in 1995. Ever since he began developing computer games for children for different companies. In an interview with the Austrian radio show FM4, he said in 2004... Well, I mean, it's definitely going to be something that's translated into German again, isn't it? Alright, everyone loves stories. We've been telling stories since thousands of years. Nowadays, games do not have practical stories, other than those that claim to have them. They have scenarios, a simple plot, but no real stories. A real story is a complex thing, a journey that that allows the viewer, player, to find something about themselves. Ron Gilbert, famous German, yeah. Most stories are simple apologies for the action, for the killing, and for that will happen later in the game. The story is told in a boring 5-minute cutscene at the beginning. Stories can mean so much more for us when we can interact with them. We just still have to find out how to properly tell them. 258, point and click. More coffee. In the first version of the Scum Story system, the player had 15 permanently visible commands to play the playable character. Those were...
3.
Okay. What is indeed? New kid, yeah, new kid. Games that need a child. That's for switching between characters, I believe. Right, those were push, open, walk to, new kid, turn on, pull, close, pick up, unlock, turn off, give, read, what is, use, fix. Get a fresh one. We need a new Timmy. I think that might only be a German thing. Anyway, when the player collected an item, this was additionally visible in a reserved area, the inventory. Complete commands to the player characters were phrased by successively clicking a command, an inventory item, or an interactive game area. and pressing the mouse button. Hence the name Point and Click Adventure. The commands composed through that manner were visible in a command line, which were clicked one more time as a confirmation. This principle remained mostly unchanged, and even competing companies such as Sierra Online changed to the point-and-click interface. In general, this graphic representation, as a change from the previous text entry, was a reduction of interactive possibilities. Even if the old parsers rarely were able to parse more than 15 commands, it was still up to the player to enter completely different commands to get funny, randomly generated responses of the computers. Can't wait for the next UKSG to have you signed up to run Thesis %. No, this is for Adventure X, this is not for UKSG. Oh, you might not have been here when we talked about why I'm doing all of this. Were you? I'm trying to prepare another presentation for Adventure X on the topic of good and bad inventory management. Last stream and the stream before that, but I don't think you were in during those times. No, I think only Ashness and Mike were here for that. And Mike might not even have been here for the part when I talked about that, so I don't know if Mike... The number of possible interactions was reduced further and further from game to game. The Secret of Monkey Island and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was restricted to 12 commands. What is was removed because the interactive room objects were already showed their definition during a mouse over. New Kid was not needed. Sharks were like good inventory management missed. Then mic drop. Right. All right. So let's get into that a little bit. It goes one further than Mist actually, because in Mist you can still pick up pages. File, open, reset. Right, so here are the 8 levels of avoiding, let's try combining everything and everything in my huge inventory. Yada yada yada. I will keep a tally of every Sierra and Lucas game mentioned. Right, level 1 is no inventory, and an example would be Loom. You can still combine spells with objects, but it's not the same as the full inventory. And oh yeah, Seventh Guest also doesn't have an inventory. And here I was thinking SAP was considered good inventory management. Wow. Well done, Lara. Also walking simulators, right. Level 2 is the last resort, where you can only have one item at a time. And examples are the last resort, and Mist, and Shivers. So yes, indeed, I will be mentioning Mist. Of course I'll be mentioning Mist. Level 3 is individual reaction, which is the diploma thesis which we're currently reading. That's the context for that. Really helps you with that one. And therefore has, as an example, Edna and Habe the Breakout. Level 4 is this thing. The Red Herring Detector. Level 5 is regular flushes, Simon the Sorcerer blueprints. Level 6, everything is breakable and consumable. I don't have a good example of that, but that's where games just... Whenever you use an item and then no longer need it... Oh! It broke when I used it. And then a little rant. Level 7, the actual last resort where items cannot be combined. And then level 8 is the horror of, like, huge game inventories. Really wish that the red herring detective was a red herring. Sadly not. And then level 9 is something much, much worse. Is whatever Phantasmagoria 2 is doing with their inventory. And then I started collecting things I would classify as adventure games. And then I started classifying things I would consider as adventure games by their level rating of the levels that I've described, the maximum inventory items, whether there's an in-game hint system, and whether there's moon logic or not. And for everything else... Oh, Curandia. I think Curandia might be on the list. Yeah, Curandia 1, 2, and 3 are on the list. So you're saying Curandia 1, 2, and 3 are level 8 or 9. Very good. Good. You only remember one well enough. Okay. Good enough. I remember that 1 and 2 are very similar. But yeah. Mike, I will contact you later with a couple of questions at some point. Probably not this week. But yeah. There's a lot of things that I need help with, and I will be handing out questionnaires at some point for a survey. But I can't go further into details. You don't have to participate, obviously. It's either ASL or address and national security number. ASL? American Sign Language? You lost me, I'm sorry. What did I say? ASL. Age, sex, location. Oh, the query, the survey. No. I'll have questions here. Right. Moving on. Let me get the start of that sentence again. Right. The number of selection possibilities was further reduced. Hello. From game to game. Secret of Monkey Island, Indiana Jones and Last Crusade was reduced to 12 commands. What was removed? Since the interactive room objects were now identified through their mouse over in the command line. New Kid was not required because the SCs were always on their own. Fix and Unlock were completely removed. Read was reformulated to look at, and the confirmation click on the command line was also removed. So what remained was open, walk to, use, close, pick up, look at, push, talk to, turn on, pull, give, turn off. Miniac mentioned 2 Day of the Tentacle, Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge, and Indiana Jones 4 The Fate of Atlantis only needed 9 verbs. Turn on and turn off were removed. Walk to was now applied by default and was therefore not available through a button. The result was hence give, open, close, pick up, look up, talk to, use, push, pull. With that, space was saved and the inventory items were depicted graphically for the very first time as small icons in the interface. Finally, just like the competition, the interface was changed up for a purely graphical interface. In Full Throttle and Monkey Island 3, the remaining commands were collected into icons. Each interface symbol for eye, hand, and mouth replaced the usual commands for look at, use, or take, or talk to. Full Throttle also had a boot because the main character Ben was still a motorcycle rocker, and as such used to kicking around. The interface was no longer resident on the lower screen, and but instead was hidden behind the cursor. When holding the left mouse button, it opened, and a corresponding command was to be chosen by hovering over it with the cursor and letting go of the cursor. There we go. Just realized Mist and Shivers have the exact same inventory, right? Only one item at a time. That is also something I realized when writing all of this up. Right. And here we have the interface coin from Monkey Island 3 and the interface from Full Throttle. In the Dig 1995, the only thing that remained was the intelligent cursor. Der sich zu jedem Objekt einpassen. Oh, which intelligently found its own correct corresponding command based on the object. And therefore limited the player in its number of combination possibilities from deeper interactions to the game, or deeper influences to the game. A development of the competitor Sierra Online, on the other hand, went in the other direction. Their first point-and-click interface after the text adventure also hid their commands behind the cursor. With the right mouse button, you could scroll through the commands one by one, and a direct selection was of items was possible through a hidden icon scroll at the upper screen border, or through a keyboard shortcut. In their final games, in their final adventure games, those components, similar to old ScumVM games, found a permanent representation on the screen. I can think of two. Phantasmagoria 1 and 2. Oh, well, I suppose also Shivers 1 and 2. Peak inventory management, yep. Further titles from of the point-and-click era. Come on, where is Myst? Where is Myst? Naturally, not only Sierra Online and LucasArts were the ones who were acting in the late 80s and 90s to produce adventure games. The most of the competitors, however, were simply copying what their predecessors had developed in the genre and had no or little relevance. But because of the high demand within the genre, even those could achieve successes. Among them was the Simon & Sorcerer series from AdventureSoft, The Legend of Kyrandia by Westwood, Discworld by Psygnosis, in several individual titles. Turn Adventures. Other than Sierra... Oh, there! Oh! It gets its own chapter. Other than Sierra Online and... Oh, after both Sierra Online and LucasArts announced no longer wanting to produce adventure games, the fan community, similar to the reaction of the text adventures and the IF community, went to the underground of the internet. With tools such as AGS, Adventure Game Studio, hobby programmers worked on their amateur adventure games. The website adventuregamestudio.co.uk still hosts most of the best results, I guess, for downloads. News on further independent fan projects are collected at adventuregames.com/underground/index.php. Jesus Christ. Okay. 2.5.11 missed. Here we go. 1993. Rand and Robin C. Miller. I did not know he had a middle initial. But I'm pretty sure he's spelled with a Y. Hang on. Yep, Robin Charles Miller. Spelled with a Y. The C stands for C. The B in Benoit B. Mandelbrot is short for Benoit B. Mandelbrot. That's a fractal joke. In 1993, Rand and Robin Miller from the American company Broderbound set forth on a completely different direction for the game. What do we call it? Genus. Their title, Myst, played in a pre-rendered 3D environment through which the player character, similar to the previous RPGs, moved field by field, well, place by place. If we can even count Myst as an adventure game, because of the missing protagonist, there is no unity about this discussion in the main literature. Myst is an RPG. Yes, indeed. It would be one of the very first 3D adventures of all time. Pre-rendered camera shots between individual pictures, which were stored in the QuickTime MOV format, create the illusion to be able to move through an entire 3D world. The playing character in Myst is no longer contained as a character in the picture. You have to level up your lever skill to learn the white page spell. Exactly. And the final boss is a fireplace. Right, the playing character in Myst is no longer visible as a character in the picture. Instead, you can see the gameplay from his perspective. An intelligent cursor decides in which shape or form a clicked object can be used. Its extraordinary mixture between 3D graphics and environmental puzzles. Alright, Jesus. Mood containing puzzles. Oh, why does that not work? Should that not work? It's here. Hang on, let me finish that paragraph. Led to a huge success of the game. Myst became, with over 1 million copies sold, the best sold video game of its time. There were 4 sequels and a prequel. Okay, there were 4 sequels: Riven, Exile, Revelation, and End of Ages, and a prequel, Uru, Ages Beyond Myst. Other developers copied the concept, such as Cryo with their Atlantis series. Uru is a prequel to Myst? No, it is not. Yeah! You literally interact with a recording of an adult Yisha. I mean, it's okay. If he probably just wasn't a Myst fan or I mean, the lore in Myst is difficult, right? We can all agree on that. 2 seconds. In the meantime, let me check what's wrong with Stream Elements. Oh, Microsoft. So many browsers open. Not browser tabs, but actual browsers. There. Can I have my dashboard, please? Is that loyalty? No. Media requests. No. What's going on here? Elements? Voice? I'm trying. I mean, it does the CappaGen thing, and it does the text render thing. So what's the problem? There. Stream store, there. Leave a 1. Item disabled. No!
Leave her, Johnny, leave her.
It's still there. What? Was that me or you? What? What? Oh, it looks like I have overwritten the redeem command, which seems like it was a protected command. Let me remove that. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Right, that did... No. You're right, that worked last time. Okay, so it must have been a recent change, so it's not that. Hmm. That was like 2 weeks ago that you did Max Stone. Weird. Okay. Apologies, I cannot. Don't think that's gonna work. The thing is, you should also be able to redeem it by typing !redeem and then the actual official title. So notescam would be !redeem notescam. Nope. I can try refreshing the cache. Yeah, Stream Elements is receiving all of these. Nothing is happening. Yeah. Sorry. For now, that is not fixable. Let me try to continue with this then. Despite its huge success, critics saw and missed in a contradictory manner the first signs of the death of the adventure. They argued that the player perspective you take in the game and the missing of the protagonist were leading away from the game genus of adventure and walking towards the competition from the action sector. Defenders, however, saw in the Myst games a chance of saving the adventure into the 3D age. The third dimension. The simple possibility of mapping fictional worlds in the computer in 3 dimensions in which a player could freely move quickly became a principal basis of a game that for games that were to compete in the market. 3D is boring, we should use Zweidimensionale way more. Even cartoon adaptations whose good lord, whose basic could not have been even more whose base could not have been even more two-dimensional had to become three-dimensional in their delivery, which led to somewhat absurd results. And there is even a 3D game of South Park. This development did not halt with the with the adventure game. One developer after the other stopped creating two-dimensional games. Almost every still-running adventure series got a 3D successor. Indeed, these 3D adventures, with very few exceptions, were cheating. Schummelpakete, yeah. The player definitely could not move freely in this new generation of games, and it remained with static backgrounds, which were now 3D rendered instead of painted. Only the characters that appeared in the game that used 3D engines, rotations, light effects, and scalings. Oh, right. Only the figures in the game used the actual 3D engine to create rotations, light effects, and scalings. Which would have been a lot more... Yeah, this is why we got GK3. Which would have been a lot more tedious back in the day. The very visible disadvantage of this is that the tools of the 3D designer were still in its infancy. Before that, year after year, the designers were able to scale up from simple 16 color backgrounds up to professional cartoon animations in colorful Aquarius. Nope, Aquarius is the wrong word. Hand-drawn. Nope, also the wrong word. Colorful. Aquarelle is such a niche word. Jesus. Oh, watercolor. Yes, of course. Watercolor pictures. In the middle of the 90s, hard and software were good enough such that when designing games, one could losslessly use images created by illustrators and animators, such that they could transfer their old traditional skills to the computer. Now the know-how was always there, but the technique. No, it's not technique. Technique is such a weird word to translate because it's not a technique. But you can say technique. Wasn't there yet. The job title of 3D designer was created out of nothing, parallel to the technical advancements in the area. They were happening door to door and at the same time. A scene from Monkey Island 3 with 2D watercolor drawn background, and a scene from Monkey Island 4 with polygon-based characters in pre-rendered backgrounds. Even today, the principle of the 3D adventure is unchanged and has a shadow existence on the gaming market. And when the next developed title once again tried to claim to begin a new era of adventure games, it is obvious even to the most hopeful of the fans that this is nothing more than a half-hearted advertisement strategy, or other marketing strategy is what we call it. The death of a gaming genus. Is adventure dead? must be the most incendiary title of many lectures, panel discussions, roundtables, and presentations here at the 1999 Game Developers Conference. Okay. That was at the GDC in March 1999. Oh. This is the end of this chapter, okay. There are still active discussions on the waning success of the adventure game and oh god, the declining interest in the developers from their previous gold child to no further interest. Experts are unsure whether the genre is actually dead. So not genre. Whether the genus is actually dead or will live through Renaissance. They're also unsure who or what was the cause of this process. Finally, the question is asked what we'd have to do better in order for adventure games and interactive stories to keep their place on the computer game market. I hope that through my concept of Edna bricht aus, which will be the content of chapter 3, to give nudges into the direction. Finally, in my final words, I will return to that point in connection to my previous practical experiences with developing the video game, and will yield my final verdict. Okay, so now we go to chapter 3. Okay, let me just take an overview. Right. And that Fazit. Let me just... Right. We'll continue here next time. Because I'm very tired. I'll see you all later. Let me see. If someone is online. None of our usuals, so we'll leave it here. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time. Bye bye.